Hello and welcome everyone to a new anime review. It's been quite a while since I did the Yoshika no Shora one, which was also split up into 3 parts, but this one won't be, which is super nice. So we're going to do a show that I just recently finished watching again. It just got dubbed recently, and I thought I might as well, this might be a good one to start off for my anime reviews, and it's called Myriad Colors Phantom World. If I butchered the first word, oh well. So this story is really interesting. Okay, so the main character, his name is Haruhiko Ichijo, and his teammate, Mai, hunt these obnoxious phantoms. And the reason I call them obnoxious is because the phantoms that they hunt aren't really anything special. They're just kind of like causing mischief, dancing around for no reason. I mean, the one at the beginning kind of fights, I guess, but it doesn't really seem all of that too crazy. And well, these two make the worst team in the entire school. And so there's this school, and anyone who has these powers fight the phantoms, and try and keep the peace, I guess you could say. Um, there's a long, really obnoxious reason why they have these powers. A radioactive chemical got out and caused this virus to escape, which gave everyone these powers and the ability to see phantoms, etc. Well, not everyone powers. Everyone can see phantoms, but not everyone developed powers. And those who develop powers are usually really young, because that's just how anime works. They need to be in high school, obviously. I mean, come on. So, this horrible team fights this phantom at the very beginning, and they win, but they damage the school, and so all of their winnings go to paying the school back for damaging the, I don't know, clock tower, I guess. I mean, it's just a little clock. And as time passes, as the episodes progress, they start getting new characters that come and join their squad, because that's just how that works. They need more generic stereotypes to be on their team in order to make it the complete generic stereotypical team of anime. And as they prove themselves, they slowly become better and better and better until towards the end of the series they encounter a super evil phantom named Enigma. And this super evil phantom named Enigma has an incredible power to take other people's powers. And it's very impressive, to be honest with you. She can even possess people's bodies in order to get close to people and then steal their powers. It's actually a pretty impressive scheme. However, of course, the main character bullshit does have to be pretty impressive, to say the least. But that's besides the point. So, over the course of the show, we see generic stereotypes slowly become part of basically the main character's harem. I mean, not technically, but also technically at the same time, if you kind of get what I'm saying. So let's check out the characters for a second. At least we're going to focus mainly on the 6 main characters that the story revolves around. So we got Haruhiko Ichijo, the super generic, bland main character, but he's smart.
Know that. The concept of parole was originally introduced by a Swiss linguist named Ferdinand de Saussure. Simply put, it refers to chatter.
Yes, he is actually intelligent, and he just goes on these spurts of random knowledge for no reason at the beginning of almost every episode. I mean, I don't know. They're very fascinating to me, but also kind of useless, to be honest with you. Um, but he uses a sketchbook, which he apparently can also draw really, really well. And he can seal phantoms within it as well as summon phantoms very poorly until the plot needs him to not do it very poorly. Um, so that's a thing. And he also has a set of plot armor and untapped OP as fuck power. Generic main character stuff. Obviously, he's a cookie cutter main character, but they decided to put a brain in there, which is super cool. And then we've got move on to Reina Izumi. Now, she's kind of again a generic stereotypical character, just like almost all of these characters. I say almost because of the character at the end of this list. But she's eats a lot. She has the generic, oh, the main character touched me, I have to throw him, even though I kind of sort of like them in a way, maybe sort of, kind of. It's one of those really obnoxious character types, but I mean, she's precious. She's adorable. She steals phantoms by eating it, but hey, on the plus side, she obviously gains no weight because that's just how the character type is. Almost every single time in anime, if you see a character that is female who eats a fuck ton of food, they never gain any weight and they're usually super skinny. Either that or they have fat in other places that they would want them. But she's super quiet. She has this weird big sister complex with Mai for no really good reason, and she has home problems that the main character obviously has to help her with at one point, which is, by the way, my second favorite arc of the entire series is when Haruhiko and Reina have her little family development arc. But all things considered, Reina's a very cookie cutter character as well. But I mean, it's a cute character, so it kind of works. And then we have Mai Hawakami, and she is the generic she is the generic fan service character. And if any of you have seen any clips from this, either it's going to be Ruru talking about her name, or it's going to be about Mai just being the generic, ecchi fan service character. I mean, she has her fighting style where, she summons the power from her lungs and she just grabs right where her lungs are, but not really. And I don't know, it's a very interesting way of doing that, but, it's anime, so that's just how that's going to work. She's got this kind of tsundere attitude, but it's not like a super generic tsundere attitude. She's just like a passive tsundere is what I like to call her. She does these things with the main character where she bashes on him and she just kind of plays around with him, or she hits him on the head or something. But it's not like a very generic way of doing it. She's very straightforward, and she's just the generic fan service character. You need any one of those for the generic harem of character archetypes. And speaking of generic archetypes, then we move on to Kurumi Kumamakura. Kumamakura. It's a very interesting name. But Kuma means bear, so this girl likes bears a lot. Like, way too much. Like, it's kind of scary a little bit, to be honest with you. But she's the generic shy lolly. She's the 4th grader, has a giant teddy bear. Well, I mean, it's about a normal sized teddy bear, but then it becomes like 45 feet tall when she needs it to. Named Albrecht. I hope I'm saying that right. Albrecht. Yeah, and she just likes bears. She likes her favorite food has bear in it. Well, kuma in it, and her last name has Kuma in it. It's kind of wild, to be honest with you, but that's just how that goes. And then we move on to Kaito Minase.
This way.
What are you guys doing here?
Miss Himeno requested that we come meet you. She wanted us to back you up.
I don't need any backup. Right.
Who is honestly not important. Really, I mean, I'm sorry if she's your favorite character in the show, but she's the generic, quiet, stubborn girl that's reluctant to join the group, but eventually obviously does. And then she never really does anything of substantial value, to be honest with you. Because she's the generic, quiet, stubborn girl, which means she doesn't really do anything. And when she does, she just kind of like sits there in the corner and goes, well, it's your problem. And to be honest, in a 12-episode anime series, that doesn't do anything. If it were 24 episodes and then they have like a generic kind of character arc where she opens up or something, I mean, she had her character arc in this show, but it didn't exactly accomplish the whole opening up thing. You barely even hear from her afterwards. She's just kind of there occasionally, and it doesn't really do anything for her. She does have this really kind of depressing backstory of her power, but it's really glossed over in this show, and I just feel like that just attributes to how, like, she isn't important, really, to be honest with you. There's no other way to say that. And then we have the best character in the entire show by leaps and bounds. She's absolutely the best character in the anime by far. It's just leaps and bounds above everyone else. She is absolutely amazing. She's eccentric, fun. She's energetic. She's the best Phantom. She has the best character design. She's always interesting. She's an integral part of just the overall atmosphere of the show. She's just absolutely amazing in every sense of the word. Ruru, I apologize that I can't say her full name, but she is definitely the best character in the show by far. And it's just not even remotely close, like, at all. I mean, there's no one in this show that can come even remotely close to Ruru. And that's not to say that there aren't good characters in the show. I mean, there are some very, very good stereotypes in this show, but it's just Ruru, being the free bird that she is amazing. And it's just a breath of fresh air, and she's just the greatest thing in the entire show by absolute far. So, now that we've got the character and the plot out of the way, we move on to the animation. And I know that I'm kind of breezing through this, but to be honest, I don't. If there's anything else you want me to specifically say about future anime series, make sure to let me know in the comments, because I mean, I don't really do this a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you. So I don't want to spoil anything too big, which is why I kind of limit it down to things that are necessary. But if there's things that you specifically want to hear in future anime reviews, let me know in the comment section. But we're moving on to animation, and it's immaculate. Like, if you haven't noticed from some of the clips that you've seen, it's just absolutely amazing, and it just is just beautiful. I mean, there's a reason why color is in the name of the anime. It's just, at least in the English version of the I don't know about yeah, but anyway, it's got some really fresh and smooth fight scenes. The sounds made are on point, and they work really well. Even when the world changed and the entire animation style at least looked a little bit different, it really matched what was going on, and it really put things into a good perspective. And I mean, it's Kyoto Annie. I mean, they're my personal favorite studio for just in general. I always love their stuff, and it's just amazing. Like what they do with the animation and the soundtrack. I love the opening song a lot, and I really do like the ending soundtrack. It's not nearly as good, but the opening is stellar. I listen to that all the time. It's absolutely amazing. And this for the soundtrack in general, it's a little above average in my opinion, but the opening song just captures it
That is
for
what
me.
I am
It's
here
just
to
absolutely
find out.
terrific.
Kondo-san is also making his way
Yeah,
in.
I just love it.
Soji, look
Then we
over
move
there!
on to voice acting,
I'm
which this one is a very opinionated subject.
It's
I know so
Kamo-san,
technically
Are
is
you here
music.
for
I
revenge?
mean, there
You are
might be some
mistaken,
people
Soji.
who
That is in
don't
fact a
like
yokai. It
the
wants to
opening
take the
song,
town
and I
for itself.
apologize, but I think it's just one of the best opening songs in all of anime. Which, again, my own opinion. But voice acting is going to be a little bit difficult. I've heard both the sub and the dub, which I've personally done a lot of. I've watched a lot of shows twice just to watch the sub and the dub and see which one I like better. And a lot of the time, I like the dub better. I really do. I'm one of those people that like a lot of the dub voice actors, and I just like how it sounds. Now I know that some of the meaning and sentences are completely restructured to the point where they're a lot different than what they were in the sub, and I, as someone who watches both, definitely understand that. But I just like the way that the dub sounds a lot of the time. A lot of the time. Not all the time. Not all the time. If you want me to talk about a show, Haganai or all of Yu-Gi-Oh, both of those series, never watch dub. It's just not even good. It's not even good. But most of the time I watch dub over sub. And one of those is because I do like a lot of the dub voice actors, and the second is because of convenience. I like to do other things while I'm doing this, like I play my 3DS and I shiny hunt while I'm watching anime. Like right now I'm watching the Monogatari series. I can't shiny hunt while reading subtitles. It's just really too difficult. And that's just how that's going to be. I mean, obviously that's just how that's going to work, but it's kind of a hindrance at times, and sometimes I definitely like to just be able to look down and look up and, not miss any of the conversation. Obviously, during fight scenes, it doesn't matter because I'm going to miss stuff anyway, but in this case specifically, the sub is better. I honestly, again, like I said before, I don't say that a lot, but I just felt like the sub was a lot more smooth and fluid than the dub. That's the number one most important thing for me, is I like the way that the dub sounds over the sub when I like the dub better. But in this case, the dub sounded a lot more choppy, robotic, not really... I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it didn't sound... I don't know, realistic? It sounded forced. Like they were trying too hard, maybe. But one of the biggest factors, which y'all might think I'm stupid for this, but sometimes it's just one part where I like the sub over the dub that keys the whole thing in for me, and that's Ruru's name. Now, in the dub, Ruru's name is a lot more choppy, which, hey, I've got to give her props for what she was able to accomplish. I know it was... She tried really hard to say the entire name at once, and it just didn't happen. And I do understand that, but at the same time, the sub was able to do it. They were able to say Ruru's entire name so fluidly, it was just gorgeous. And I've listened to just that section of the thing, of the show, like several times. It's absolutely terrific, and that, for me, just sells me on the entire thing. I mean, what I said before about the sub being better than the dub is completely accurate still, and I do believe that. But one of the biggest selling points is going to be Ruru's name in episode, I believe, 2, 3, 2. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But that part is massive to me, personally. So a couple other things. I think that this show does have some unnecessary, ecchi fan service scenes. And while, I mean, this is anime, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt sometimes. But there is a lot in this show. Like, almost every episode, there's just this random scene where it'll just be, unnecessary, ecchi bullshit. And it kind of takes away from the show a little bit when it happens. Mainly because it just kind of does. Like, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the scene where, Reina is falling down the stairs and then Ruru tries to save her and the main character tries to not do anything, and then it ends up that that Ruru pulling her ends up getting her to sit on his head, and obviously she's wearing a skirt, so generic stuff. Like, I'm going to give that one away because, whatever, it's just anime stuff, but it's the other stuff, like in the middle of a fight scene when Mai just bam, full on. It just doesn't make sense. Like, you can summon your breath and your lungs from right here. Like, you could just put your hand right here, and it'll be fine. So that's just one thing for me personally. That really doesn't compute. Another thing is the kind of, I don't know, anime villain of the week. It does have that sort of vibe for the first, I believe, 8, 9 episodes before the actual ending arc. When I said about Enigma, like, until that arc happens, it's the generic anime villain of the week. It's them fighting a new Phantom and, generic stuff. It's nothing really too special, which does kind of hurt its score a little bit. But on the bright side, I think the characters are pretty good, even though they're very stereotypical. I think that it's very interesting, and the story itself is very unique. A lot of the anime villains that they do have, like the cat episode being my absolute favorite, by the way. Loved the cat episode. Is terrific. Like, it's really well done. But then there's other arcs like the Aldbrich bear arc that they had for an episode that was ridiculous, in my opinion. That was just, I mean, obviously Kurumi had to have her arc, but it was just a little bit over the top and unnecessary. And then the baboon arc, don't even get me started on that one. That one, I almost want you guys to skip that episode because it's just god-awful for the most part. I mean, there are a couple satisfying parts, but not really. Like, it is a very skippable episode. But, like, the entire Enigma arc is absolutely amazing. The last 3 or 4 episodes of the series with Enigma is absolutely amazing. The one where the main character is switching between ages or whatever is terrific. I'm not trying to spoil too much for it, but because it's a generic anime arc, all I am doing is telling you the actual arc itself. I'm not telling you anything that actually happens in the arc, so I'm trying to avoid overall spoilers, especially on like what happens. But the one where the main character has age regression and goes back to being an elementary school student is absolutely amazing. It's really well done. The way that they put it together, with his internal struggles and whatnot, and it is terrific. And even the one where, Mai and meets the 2 phantom chicks that she knew growing up. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Like, there are a lot of most of the episodes, if not all of them, have their moments. I mean, there's just the baboon one, which I didn't really care for, and the Altbrick one that I didn't really care for, but there were still some good and valuable parts to those episodes that I don't think that you should miss. So I don't know. I really do think that it's a good show, so I'm going to rate this a solid 7 out of 10. Pardon, 7 out of 10. I think it's a good episode that has a recommended audience. If you guys don't really like the comedy, the comedy somewhat but not really action anime, then this probably isn't for you. I mean, the last like 3 episodes do have some pretty good action scenes in it, as well as a couple of the other phantoms that they fight, but a lot of them, like, they fight these I don't know what they're called, like telephone poles, by doing the limbo. It's not really a fighting arc per se, you know. Um, so if you are more on into that, or you're less into comedy, there are a lot of people who don't really care for anime comedy. Then this probably isn't the best show for you. But I would highly recommend that most of you watch this show. I mean, if you like comedy, if you like, you know, Kyoto Annie, if you like bright, beautiful colors, if you like, you know, hell, if you just like the characters, I'd highly recommend to give it at least a try. What I do personally nowadays, I used to watch an anime in entirety. If I was going to watch the anime, I was gonna sit down there and I was gonna watch the whole thing. That's how I used to view it. I watched this horrible anime called Saikon no Quasar because of that. And after that series, I thought I was going to die because I watched the first season. The second season hadn't come out when I watched Saikon no Quasar, so I didn't watch that, thank God, because I will never do that. And I regret it completely, because for myself, I felt like I was failing after the first episode, because that was my thing for like 7 years. Was I was going to sit down and I was going to watch a series in its entirety if I chose to do it. And there were very few things that I had ever done in my entire, anime watching life that countered that. There were some. Fairy Tail, I only got to like 120, and then I was like, oh man, this is just getting repetitive and stupid. And a couple of other shows, especially the long ones. But this show wasn't long, so I was like, I have to sit down and watch this entire thing, or else I'm not a true anime fan. But after finishing that series, I was like, you know what? That was dumb. That was a horrible decision, and I'm never going to do that again. So now I do the 3-episode rule, where if it's a 12-episode anime series, you watch the first 3 episodes, and if you don't like it after the 3rd episode, then you drop it. Or if it's 24 episodes, then you watch the first 6. And if it's more than 24, then I usually prefer to watch the first 8. I know normally I'd probably do 9. It just kind of depends on the mood, but usually ends up being 8. Especially with a lot of the really long shows. Like if we're talking like Bleach or Naruto episodes, like 8 episodes isn't going to do it, because it's just going to be, the really boring intro. I mean, this is an, upwards of 500 episode anime series. Then obviously, in the first 8 episodes, you're not going to get enough of the show. Though for me personally, if a show like that doesn't hook me by 8 episodes, it's not worth it. Because anyway, we're kind of getting off topic. But My Red Colors Phantom World, 7 out of 10. I'd really recommend that you at least do the 3-episode rule, and you take the first 3 episodes. You see if you like the comedy style, the art color, and stuff like that, and you go for it from there. If you've already watched the show, and you can tell me in the comment section whether or not you agree with my 7 out of 10 score. But other suggestions, if you liked this show, is when supernatural battles become commonplace. It's kind of got the same generic group of characters. It has a bunch of people gaining powers miraculously and using those powers in a classroom type setting, trying to keep it secret from everyone else. In this case, it's a very funny show, and it's really good. It's a solid show that goes along very similar with Myriad Colors No Phantom World in terms of the same type of comedy for the most part. It's not nearly as ecchi, which I like a lot about that show, but it's also kind of lax in the sense that it doesn't really have any serious complications because it's just a bunch of kids in a classroom getting powers for no reason, which is funny, and it's got its comedy gold in there, but it also doesn't really have a true plot or development because of that. There's not really any bad guy because no one else has powers. It's just these random 5 kids in a club room. So I don't know. Take that what you will. Another show that I highly recommend is Flip Flappers. Now this one is not as well known, which is one of the reasons why I like to recommend that. What I usually do is I recommend one that I've watched and really liked. I watched one that I watched and really liked that not no one knows about, but it's very undervalued, I guess. I like to recommend shows that don't get a lot of attention, and Flip Flappers is one of those. And then I go on to my anime list and I look up recommendations and I pick one off of there that I really think would go well with this. So Flip Flappers is another one where it's kind of got a powers theme and it's kind of got this odd vibe to it. In Myriad Colors No Phantom World, they go to a lot of different places. The phantoms come out. They kind of manipulate reality. In Flip Flappers, it's kind of the same idea. They have, these kind of weird power things. It's very colorful. They go to these strange worlds where they're trying to find, these secrets, and it's a very fun and lighthearted show. It's also only available in sub, which, as for my other 2 recommendations, are available in both dub and sub. But I highly recommend this one anyway. Even if you are more of a dub over sub person, I still think that this show is pretty good and has a lot of good moments, especially if you liked this show. It goes along really well with that, but it doesn't really have, and what's I think is positive for me is it doesn't have the ecchi nonsense, and it doesn't have a male main character, which is really interesting as well. It doesn't have that harem nonsense. And then my third option, this is the one from my anime list, is Charlotte. Now, I've watched this one twice, and I've showed a lot of people this show. I really like this show. It's another kind of thing where because of some unknown phenomenon, known phenomenon, but not really explained until later phenomenon, kids have powers. It's always high schoolers because that's just how that works. And kids have powers and they're going to school, and at least in Charlotte, it's a comedy for the first little while. And then shit goes down. It goes from comedy to absolute drama, dark. Damn. Yeah, it's one of those shows. But it's very similar to this show in terms of the powers. It doesn't really have the same fight scenes, at least until the end. But it does have a lot of these practical uses of powers and how people would use these powers if they were given them, especially if most of the world didn't know that powers existed. So it has that practical application. It's also a little bit different in the sense that it's a lot darker, especially towards the second half of the show. And it's also really well known, so if you guys liked Charlotte, perhaps you could watch Myriad Colors No Phantom World, except it's just not as dark. So if you liked any of those 3 shows I recommended, that's another reason why you should watch this show. And vice versa, if you like this show, then there's another reason to watch all 3 of those. So if you like this series, make sure you click that thumbs up button and leave a comment down below for me. I really do appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for watching. Your support is amazing. And I highly recommend, if you like this series, you go back and watch my Yosuga no Shora review, as well as possibly other shows or series that you find interesting on this channel. You can also send me suggestions of stuff that you want to see on the channel in the comment section or in the discussion or whatever way you want to contact me in that sense. Just whatever you think would be a benefit to this channel. And thank you all for watching again, and I highly appreciate it.